Day 3 of week 1. We're going to be reading from James 1, starting with verse 19. You know this, my beloved brothers and sisters. Now everyone must be quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. For a man's anger does not bring about the righteousness of God. Therefore, ridding yourselves of all filthiness and all that remains of wickedness, in humility receive the word implanted, which is able to save your souls. But prove yourselves doers of the word and not just hearers who deceive themselves. For if anyone is a hearer of the word and not a doer, he is like a man who looks at his natural face in a mirror. For once he has looked at himself and gone away, he has immediately forgotten what kind of person he was. But one who has looked intently at the perfect law, the law of freedom, and has continued in it, not having become a forgetful hearer, but an active doer, this person will be blessed in what he does. Hey everyone. Oh, weird lighting. Sorry. Driving into the sun. Good section today, wasn't it? I tell you, reading and meditating on James is so awesome for me. And what I'm starting to see again, I guess I saw this yesterday too, but seeing again that I think I used to read in such a disjointed way, not putting the whole picture together. And I mean, I'm sure I am still so disjointed, but I feel like I'm starting to see connections and what the author was intending to say in ways that I haven't seen. And that's what's so cool about taking a small chunk of text and really spending your time with it, is that it's so rich that when I would just read over it quickly, I just wasn't picking up what they were laying down, I don't think. And I'm sure I'm still not there, but let's dive in. Welcome to the dinner table conversation, and love it when you leave comments like Mari. Mari, I wish we could have dinner together and talk about this stuff. Wouldn't that be awesome? She's in another country. All right, guys. So, first of all, starting with this idea of quick to hear, the NASB says, quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to anger. Okay, when I read this in the past, I always read that to mean quick to hear, quick to listen. I think was the version I originally learned it in. Quick to listen. I thought this was like, just kind of like life advice. Like, it's better to, you have 2 ears and 1 mouth. It's better to listen twice as much as you speak, which is probably true. But reading this time, I think it's saying quick to hear from God. I mean, and this follows right on that whole section of how wonderful God is, that he's good and that he doesn't tempt us, but he gives us all good things, and that he is the Father of lights, and that the part about being his first fruits because of the word of truth that he gave us. So I think this is talking about hearing and the word of truth that he's given us. And I think that the slow to speak and slow to become angry is probably talking about, I think it's talking about that heart that takes a pause when you notice that you're wanting to speak out or you're wanting to be angry, and those things are motivated by our lusts and desires, our inordinate loves. Then we pause, and before speaking out and before being angry, we hear and we listen to his spirit and the word that he's given us. Because our anger, we were talking about this yesterday, right? That your anger and negative emotions are often a cue to the lusts and desires and the sinful thoughts that are happening underneath. So the anger of a man generally, at least in my experience with myself and the readings that I've done, comes from our inordinate loves, trying to get our way of what it is that we love most in life, like power, comfort, recognition, those kinds of things, pleasures. So the anger of a man is often our way of pursuing our inordinate loves. And so I think that James is saying, pause, reflect on what's really going on in your heart, and let your heart listen to God instead of to the sinful nature and the desires. So the other thing that I think is pretty cool is that, the next part of the verse where he says to get rid of filthiness and wickedness, I was thinking about that, well, that's kind of a big thing to just say, just get rid of it. Is that what we're all trying to do? Maybe a how would have been nice. And then it hit me, I think he did give the how. I think the how is what he said about being quick to hear, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. And that in that we're going to start replacing all of the wickedness and the filth and the lust and the desires with hearing him, the word of truth that he's given us. So that is so cool that he laid that out for us. I just love that. So then he goes on and talks about the person who hears and does, not the person who hears and forgets. So this was making me think about how when we hear and that seed is implanted in our heart of the word of truth, that it grows and it starts to shape who we are inside. We have a new identity. So if we just forget and go do what our old lusts and desires would have us do, as we're speaking out in anger and from an unexamined heart of hearing from him, when we just keep going in this way, it's as nonsensical as a person who would look in the mirror and then forget who they were. And I think the mirror thing is kind of cool because I think it brings in this concept of identity, that now our identity has changed, our internal identity has changed, and so to not do is as if we forgot. So today, let's see if I can show you my wrist. It's hard to get it at that angle. It says hear and remember. That was my gym for today. And so I've been thinking about, as I go into each activity, to try to hear, as in to basically recollect or recollect, as I realign with God and bring this sense of his presence in what I'm about to do into my activity. And then to remember to try to hold on to that. And so that has been helpful in some of the moments. Some of the moments I definitely got distracted and I think in a kind of a momentary way forgot. In terms of just getting distracted and oriented into the task and not living in that sense of trust. But there were some good moments. There was definitely a moment where I realized something I'd forgotten to do and it was going to be time consuming, and I started getting a little bit amped up, stressed, I didn't expect this. I don't have time for this. I've got all these other things I have to get done. And then I just paused just to hear him reassuring me, you don't carry this burden. I'll carry the burden. You just trust me, move forward with me. And it was beautiful. And I am so thankful for that. So Jesus, we love you and we praise you, Jesus.